Hello, Natty Casters. Today's guest is Maggie Perrino. Born and raised on the west side of Cincinnati, Maggie has theater in her blood, often doing her homework in the wings of shows her father was producing. Starting out as a dancer, as Maggie grew up, she realized that her real passion was in leadership, including teaching, directing, and arts administration. Maggie has just left her position as the artistic director of the School for Creative and Performing Arts and is making her way up the hill to start her new role as Assistant Dean for the College Conservatory of Music at the University of Cincinnati this fall. While her passion for theater, education, and young people might not come as a surprise, what we didn't expect is Maggie's significant knowledge about maritime issues. Her father ran the Showboat Majestic on the riverfront of Cincinnati for over 20 years. Growing up, she had memorized the number to call to check the level of the Ohio River, and it was not unusual to accompany her dad as they managed the rising river's impact on the showboat. The rope lines had to be let out by someone. If not, the sewage lines were ripped out, and you really had a show. The glamorous life of the theater. We had a great time talking and learning about Maggie's story, which incidentally includes stepping foot in North Korea. So we covered a lot of territory. Please enjoy our conversation with Maggie Perrino.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Natty Cast. And now to your hosts, Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas.
So Tim, Maggie's we were chatting before we came out, but Maggie's a West Sider.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah. My mom is a proud Western Hills class of 61 grad.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. I thought you were going to say either like a Delhesian or a
What is a Delhesian?
That would be
Delhi,
somebody
is someone
from
who lives in
Delhi.
Delhi.
So my favorite story. We're driving. My wife's from the UK.
Oh,
And we
welcome to Cincinnati.
Yeah, well, we were. So she flew out to. I was living in LA, and we moved back to Cincinnati together. We weren't married yet, but we drove across the country, driving through Indy, coming into Cincinnati, and she looked up and she goes, "Oh, you have a city here called Delhi." And I looked up and I went, "No, we got." And I'm like, "Holy crap, that is what
baby.
that says."
That's right. And it's Versailles, Indiana,
Well, no,
everybody.
I'd always,
Sorry.
But here's the thing: I'd always made fun of Versailles and all that. You know, like these people. Don't.
Oh, yeah, no.
But I looked up at the sign. I'm like, that does say Delhi.
God.
Yeah, it definitely says Delhi.
Chevroi.
Yes.
Chevroi
Well, and I've
is the other
actually been to Delhi, which is lovely, but nothing like Delhi on the west side. So, you know.
How was the food? Was it spicy?
It was, but well, Northern Indian is amazing food. But, you know, it's not quite like the buffalo wings and rings, of course, on like, Delhi Avenue. So come on, guys. So.
Yeah, what
What was the name of the bar you mentioned earlier?
Oh, Gary's West Sider. That's in Cheviot.
Gary's West Sider. Tim, I think this is a place we're going to have to go check out.
In Cheviot. Or as some people prefer to say, Chevroi.
Chevroi.
But on the west side, we are going to say Cheviot. So, yep.
They got
there you
good
go.
burgers there, or they got a signature?
Oh, I don't know that they have anything to eat. I think it's a place for drinking. It's a place for drinking low-end beverages. That's what it's for.
If you want a PBR, Tim, I think Gary's West Sider.
We got you on the PBR. A little Miller High Life. We like to do
Unipole,
old
man.
school.
Give me a
champagne
Unipole.
of beers, people.
Ruby Delight.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yes, you can see all the West Side characters represented there, though, at the Gary's West Side.
And that's what this podcast is all about, by the way. We're going to
Perfect.
identify local drinkeries.
Yeah, it's sort of like people of Walmart, except people of the West Side at the Gary's. So
We got to
You
get them
love
to be a
them.
sponsor.
That's right.
You know?
Man, I'm not even sure if Gary's still alive, to be honest. They might have just kept the name. Hard to say. It's been there a long time.
You walk in and some dude named George is running it. You're like, Gary's
that's a
been dead for
lie.
20 years.
Where's Gary?
They're like, Gary's buried in the back.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's under the dumpster where they're dropping all the glass bottles at 2 a.m. That's where they keep him.
So you come from a theater family, right? I mean, you like born and raised in theater, Cincinnati theater royalty, right?
That's nice for people. Yeah, somebody called me a Cincinnati theater scion once, and I was like, "Ooh,
outstanding.
that sounds very fancy." The reality,
I mean, that's not basso profundo, whatever.
It's not. But yes, is the long and short of it. I wouldn't say it's illustrious as it sounds, to be sure. What that really means is I grew up like in the back of like sweaty, rehearsal halls and crappy backstages of weird theaters. There was a lot of lugging. Like my dad has a literal saying where he's like, theater is lugging, right? It's just like picking up heavy stuff and moving it around. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Hey, you're allowed to do whatever you
want.
want.
Okay, great.
And by the way,
Perfect.
you have access to Matthew. Like if you say something later, you're like, I probably shouldn't have said that.
Hey,
You can always
Matthew,
just tap in and
drop
go.
that part, please.
I'm not sure what he charges for editing it out.
But yeah, so it was a lot of like doing your math homework with the like extra actors that were like hanging out waiting for their scene, right? Also weird is like there are a lot of people that know me. But I don't necessarily remember, right? So people will walk up to me like, Maggie, I used to babysit you when I was doing Red Hot and Coal on the Showboat. And I'm like, sounds great. You're awesome. Love it for you.
So theater extras know how to do math?
No, that's
they're
why
just
she's
the
in theater now,
ensemble
too.
members. Yeah, some of them.
Her math tutors were theater extras.
Yeah,
so,
Ron, you know
we did
better,
okay.
Ron. It's ensemble members. It's not theater
That's
extras.
right. It is
You're
ensemble.
conflating
It's
film
my
and
fault. I
theater.
did
So
say
sorry.
I did say
Yeah.
extras. I meant people who weren't in the scene
Yeah.
at that
Sorry, yeah.
moment. But yes, they can in fact do math. Many of them. Yes, it turns out. We did okay anyway. So, but yeah. So it's just been a lot of. Like the old Showboat, if people remember that down at the river.
It's legendary.
Right?
That was legendary.
Absolutely. I was actually just telling somebody about it like yesterday who just moved here, so they have no idea about the Showboat. And so my dad ran the Showboat for 23 years. There is nothing wilder than that little weird theater on the river. I think there weren't any important occasions in my life, I feel like, where my dad didn't have to leave and be like, I gotta go crank the boat because the river level's are rising.
river's
Oh,
coming up.
wow. I didn't think about that.
We all there's a number you can call that tells you the river level. And as kids, we all knew it because dad would be like, call the river. We gotta find out the level, right? See if I gotta go crank. So anyway, it was a fun sort of weird way to grow up, to be sure.
And I would also say that probably 70 to 90% of the castmates in those shows were performing arts students at the time we were going there.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, there were. I mean, the truth is, it has a really intense legacy. CCM used it for a long time for summer stock when it first came.
My mom did theater on the Showboat. She went to CCM.
Perfect, exactly.
With Leroy Reams and that whole crowd. They worked there. And then when I went to CCM, they were running it at the time. So they used to drag all of us early on, been like, we were supposed to have a class, but instead we went down to let the ropes out at the, right? I mean, it
came down to crank the lines.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
Well, because if you don't crank the lines, yes, the worst thing that could happen is that the boat were to break free and sail downriver by itself. But really what happens when you break the lines is usually you don't break all of them, but it tears the sewage lines out.
Oh.
So then you got a serious problem. My dad has some chest waders that he has waded through some serious things in the hull of that boat.
Oh, really?
When lines are
the glamours of
well, and this is my point. People think oh, theater, that must be so cool and neat. It's my back hurts. I got 9,000 splinters. There's spray paint in every corner of my person. It's a lot of work, and I'm not an onstage human. I mean, I was growing up because everybody thinks they're a performer when you're a kid. And then you get to be old enough that you're I think I'd rather be in charge here. I don't need to do all this rehearsing. I would rather tell people what to do. So that worked out for me in the end. But I will say, it was a lifetime of really learning the ugly, dirty, heavy, pain in the ass stuff of theater. And then there's just something very real about if the theater, doesn't sell enough tickets, right? we're not going on vacation, right? Like, you know, so there's just like this really real life link to like the business too, that I think just really helped me growing up, because it was just really like, okay, I see both like the wonder of the art, right? And the creation and like all the cool things that happen when people make art together. But I have a very real understanding of like the people in the seats are a huge part of that process and really need to be thought of as part of that process, which means you got to sell the tickets. You got to keep the budget balanced, right? Something else my dad always says is no money, no mission, right? Like you can have the greatest mission in the world, but if you can't fund it, you can't keep going. So, you know, it really has to be about a balance between, you know, what can we give our artists to feel fulfilled and, you know, be doing their thing, but then also that is, you know, appreciated and entertaining to an audience that wants to be participatory in the process, right? Especially in the world of like Netflix and stuff, it's like, hey, get up off your couch. Come to this theater where you're going to pay money to sit there. Then you're going to sit in the dark with all the people you came and don't talk to them. And then when you leave, you can talk to them. So it's just like to convince people to do that, like especially post-COVID, right? Like is pretty hard, honestly. Like I get why you'd be like, well, I'm going to sit here with my Netflix for, you know, my low monthly fee, all of my personal snacks that I don't have to pay for, and then as many buddies as I want to chat with, and I can go to the bathroom whenever I want, you know. So there are just a lot of things in theater of now that I think are kind of hard to, you really got to think about the audience or they just like won't come out for it.
True.
Well, and I'm a big believer in, I think movie theaters, like live movie theaters, probably even have a bigger challenge, because I do believe if you can get somebody into a live theater performance, especially maybe if they haven't been around it before, that is an experience that you cannot replicate at home.
Totally agree.
The NattyCast is proud to have the support of the National Alumni Association of the Cincinnati School for Creative and Performing Arts. I am a proud alumnus of SCPA, class of 1986, as are my co-hosts Rex and Ron. If you have listened to our past episodes, you will hear the stories of other alumni and faculty who have shared their amazing stories of how the school impacted their lives. The SCPA Alumni Association is looking to reconnect classmates from over the past 50 years and help to continue to find ways to improve educational opportunities for current SCPA students. From the Dare to Dream scholarships to simply spreading the word on class reunions, support for the association will go a long way in connecting the amazing community that is the SCPA family. Your annual membership fee of $40 will help support everything from the association's daily operations to alumni event programming. Membership dues for recent SCPA graduates are waived for the first 18 months. Visit us at scpaalumni.org to become a member, donate, or find other ways to get involved. Please don't forget to check out the official store for all your SCPA merch. Again, that's scpaalumni.org. And remember, as we celebrate the me yet to come, in time, we will all be stars. And now, back to the show.
Now, a lot of movies, you know, people have big screens in their houses. They've got great sound systems in their houses and things. So that's a bigger challenge. But the communal aspect of seeing things together is important. But then with the live aspect of it, I think it's
Oh, I have a whole spiel idea about, like, you know, if I can get you in a theater, right? Like, you know, hearts beating in time, people laughing together, crying together, like everybody taking a collective like gasp when the villain is revealed, right? Like there's something that's like very magic there. And I'm not a particularly superstitious or even spiritual kind of human, but like there's something there in the moment between the audience and the actors and like everybody going, oh yeah, right, like clapping together that I just can't help but be like, okay, see,
I think there is.
This is super special.
You use the term spirituality. I mean, right? It's
like congregating. You're sharing this experience.
Exactly. Right.
I just because I'm not a church goer either, but I was down at the Brown Bear Bakery, which is right across the street from the.
I am a congregant of the Brown Bear Bakery. Yes, absolutely.
That 1841, the church across the street. The old church. It's called the old. Anyway.
Yeah.
But so I'm standing in line there on Sunday. Families are getting out of their car. The kids are dressed up. They're going in to congregate. And you just look at that and you go, even if you set the religion aside, that experience of getting up, showing up, getting dressed up, sitting in, sharing an experience together.
Exactly.
You go that there is something to that part of religion which is akin to theater, where people are doing something.
Absolutely. Right. Well, it's
together.
Right. Having the experience, like both learning and reflecting on something, right? Like, I think my older sister takes our kids to church every Sunday. And when I kind of was like, we didn't go as kids every Sunday. Like, why do you do this? She was like, it's just like a really like intentional space to like be with my family. Yeah. And just to like have that hour of time and reflection. She was like, it's not always about the religious part. Sometimes it's just about, spending a little bit of quiet time, like, holding my kid to the right and, my husband's shoulders there. And we're actually all there and present and no one's looking at their phone. So, like, I totally get that, right? Mm-hmm. But, right, theater for me is like that moment, right? My husband actually belongs to a secular hiking group that happens on Sunday mornings. So they all go.
Well, isn't by definition, do you have to put the secular part in there? I mean, right?
Well, yeah.
Well, I think
what's the difference between
don't
that and a
nobody
hiking
bring
group?
up Jesus up in here now.
I
just want to see some trees.
That's right. Well, I think it originally started as like an atheist hiking group, but some people felt that they were more agnostic. And so they went with just a general secular hiking group. But they do it like on a Sunday morning, like at the time you'd be going to church, right?
So it's not like, a pilgrimage.
No, not at all. In fact, nope. They're just,
do they hike on sidewalks or on dirt?
No, it's dirt. It's some dirt, right?
Hike.
Yeah, we're doing some.
They don't just walk past Gary.
Nature.
And call that a hiking group.
No, we don't. We don't walk past the Gary's West Sider. Although one might go to the Gary's West Sider afterwards and have a beer, which would be very normal for the West Side Catholics as well. We like to be at a purveyor of beer post church, so that's our thing. But yeah, so they go on Sunday mornings, like at the same time you would normally go to like a church service, right? They go do this, and it's interesting. They like discuss like important issues that are secular, right? So it's like one morning we might be talking about free speech, right? Or the birthright citizenship, and like, it's kind of weird to America, but it's also a big part of who we are, right? So it can get a little political, but it's mostly like, like larger issues of society. Right. I'm pretty sure the guy who runs it's like a former law professor from UC. It's, so it's some heady stuff. Yeah. I like to sleep in on Sunday, so I will snuggle with the dog, and he can go hike.
And about how many folks are doing this or participating?
It's not the biggest group, I don't think. I think it's, an 8 to 12 person thing.
And by the way, without God involved to make sure you're there, Tim, it's probably a lot less attendance required.
Yeah,
right?
People don't mind skipping. That part's cool. There's actually something opening in OTR. I don't know if you guys know Kevin James Thornton. So he's a comedian. He kind of took off during COVID, weirdly. He's done Cincinnati Fringe Theater, like the Fringe Festival, several times. And so he's pretty close with the folks who run No Theater. So he actually moved to OTR recently. And he is opening, I'm not sure where the space is in OTR, but it's called Shamala Hamala.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's like, if you grew up in a Christian fundamentalist church when it was the 90s.
I saw him at the No Theater.
Yeah, I saw his comedy stand up at the No too. And so I started following him online. And so he grew up
he's moving to Cincinnati?
He already moved here. He has a condo somewhere in OTR. And he's a kid from like Indiana who grew up in like a super fundamentalist church.
And he's so funny. If you look him up online, he is really funny.
And he's like a gay man who loves musical theater. And he talks about the way he used church to be a little bit like performative growing up, which is hilarious. He has a million hilarious stories, but he tells one about they didn't generally speak in tongues in his church, but on one particular Sunday they got into it, right? And so he started doing it again in a very performative fashion, right? He liked to be up center stage, and so he pretended to speak in tongues, and what he said was shamala hamala shamala, like many times over. So he tells that story in his stand-up, right? And so now he's literally opening a space called Shamala Hamala in OTR, and it's meant to be like a secular Sunday space, right? Okay. Like you can come and get art lessons. They're gonna have like a little like community choir, like, but it's all secular. It's just like, you know, a gathering space for Sundays for people who are, you know, not religious but would like to have a, you know, space specifically on a Sunday to have a community reflective space.
My wife had, I guess, been following him maybe during COVID.
Oh, has she? Yeah.
Well, it was during COVID, and she got, when he was at the No Theater, got us tickets.
Yeah,
and we went down there and saw, and I think he was closing there, and at the time he was talking he was going to maybe write a book or something. He was going to Europe to go write a book.
Yes, and it fell through.
Oh, did it? Okay.
He had some kind of visa issue.
Oh.
You can have him on the Natty Cast since he's here now and hear all about it. I'm sure he'd love it. He's a really neat dude. Wait, I got to meet him at the No. So
he's from Indiana and he's got a visa issue?
He's got a visa issue to live in Europe.
He was going to.
I gotcha.
So
I gotcha.
He made some money and he got a book deal to write this book, and he was. Because he literally closed his tour. He'd been on tour, and he closed at the No Theater. And so we saw, like, I think maybe did 3 shows that day. We saw, like, the middle of the shows, and he was getting ready to, but at the time he was saying he was planning on taking some time off and going to write the book.
Got it.
But he was going to move to somewhere in Europe. He wanted to just go take the time to sit down in Europe.
I think he would. I feel like the campaign he was using, like online, was like "This ends in Paris" or something like that, right?
Okay.
But he said on his social media that he had a visa issue, so he's still here, which is great because now he's launching Shamala Hamala, and I think it'll be both a hilarious and lovely addition to the neighborhood. Honestly,
that's cool.
That sounds
we have
awesome.
To find him and we have to find him and bring him in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you should.
Wow.
Yeah.
So going back to the West Side
things
and
about
family
in the
royalty, like, and for the listeners too, like what the Showboat, is it still in existence today, or did your family still have a connection?
Sadly, no. So it's really interesting. So the family that built and maintained the original Showboat, the Reynolds family, they lived on it. They had it for years and years and years, and obviously traveled up and down the river, like, you know, stopping and doing actual shows, right? The Showboat Majestic is the last original showboat in the U.S. Every other like large kind of showboat that you'll see has been rebuilt usually after fires, right? So most
it's wood.
Yeah, exactly. They're all real wood.
Take a quick step back. Showboat.
Showboat.
Explain what that is.
Oh, sure. What's a showboat?
What is a showboat?
Okay, so a showboat back in the day, right? It was kind of more economical and easier to kind of take floating shows up and down a river, and you'd stop at whatever public landing, and you know you'd have a little carnival barker out there drumming up an audience, and you know you'd get them to buy their tickets, and they'd come in, and you know we're talking about years where like we're moving from vaudeville into real theater, even, right? So a lot of it originally was more like acts, right? Like family acts that you would see, you know, tap dancing groups, and I have a bunny and a magician or whatever, like, you know, kind of like if you ever, exactly. If you've seen, you know, the play Gypsy, a lot of the like acts that are like in that, right, just, you know, old variety shows, right? Rosemary Clooney's old show she used to have here, right? Or Ruth Lyons even. So yeah, like a lot of that old variety show stuff. And then, you know, eventually once they start producing shows is by the time it's like in dock somewhere, right? The Reynolds sell it off to, actually, I think it goes to IU first, maybe Indiana University. and then eventually comes to Cincinnati. Cincinnati had been one of the ports of call, but it wasn't in any way a particularly like special place or port of call for the Showboat per se. But it does make its way here through a variety of transfers of mostly college groups buying it for summer stock kind of stuff for their students to do, or like we were talking about earlier, CCM takes it over at one point, and they're really using it as both a place to do shows as well as like teach operations, right? Sort of overall producing and administration.
Is it but 300, you think? Is that right?
Seats?
Yeah.
Or it's probably a little less than that, I would guess.
Yeah.
Maybe 225.
Yeah.
My dad would absolutely have it memorized.
Yeah.
He'd also know the exact width of the theater seats. Literally any theater we go to, my dad sits down. He's like, "What do you think? Is this a 22 inch? Is this 18? What do you think?" He's like, 32. That's the luxury. 32 inches. I think is when he's like, or 20.
I was going to say that sounds
24 inches.
Okay,
maybe.
probably.
Either way, like he's always
32
sitting down.
would be great, but I don't.
That's your movie theater seat, right?
Yeah,
You can lay back in. But yeah, he's always going on about how they used to be these teeny like 16 and 18 inch seats, right? Because people used to, I don't know, be smaller,
Yeah,
whatever. And so yeah, every time he sits down, he gets his seats. But yeah, I think it was probably more like 225 when I think about the house size.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very popular, honestly. People liked the shows as they came up and down the riverfront, right? And that was, deeply useful, I think, to a lot of educational spaces. But the city buys it. I can't remember when exactly. I think maybe the end of the 80s or so.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and then after a couple of years, my dad ends up taking it over. He bids on the contract to run it and gets it. And then they have it for 23 years. And I think, man, he had the Showboat when I was like in second or third grade. So long time inhabitants of the Showboat Majestic. And they did summer seasons on the Showboat for years and years and years. The truth is it was getting harder to produce down there at the end of the Showboat's life. The city, there's a lot of parking down there to be sold, so there was a lot of negotiations back and forth.
Because back in the day, people could park for free on the
on the public landing for
landing.
sure. Yeah, it was
Right.
free. Yeah, now they'll charge you arm and a leg to park it down there. But there's actually a few secret ways down there that I still know from my childhood, but I will not expose them on this podcast.
Maybe we'll start launching bonus episodes. People could have a pay slot.
Yeah, that's right.
And they can hear where to park.
I can teach you how to sneak onto the public landing in Cincinnati with your car.
Have people DM you on your IG,
That's right. I am not on Instagram, so they can't get to me.
Oh, okay.
I know. It's like I don't exist.
Maybe send you a note via carrier pigeon.
Yes.
That's
I also
possible.
reply to smoke signals. That's fine. Yes, I know. But anyway, so the Showboat ends up basically the city discontinues the contract on it, right? They weren't trying to leave or anything, but the city just they were kind of tired of giving up the parking. There are things on the river that also can't necessarily happen in that certain space when the boat's there. Just a lot of stuff. And so the city shut it down basically and just let it sit for a long time. 18 months or so. And in that time, it actually took a lot of damage because they just didn't know that Tim Perrino had been cranking that boat for 23 years at 2 a.m. if it needed it, right?
All the logs and things.
That's right.
Up on the
there's
back,
there's a ton of upkeep on it. There's nothing for it, right? And they just, I think they just didn't know how it needed to be taken care of. And so a lot of damage happened. All the sewage lines ripped. It was a hot mess.
Gotcha.
And so they put it up for public auction. I don't know, maybe before COVID. I can't remember exactly. But they put it up for public auction and it was bought by an individual. And now I've seen
Rex,
there are some Facebook groups.
Rex bought it.
It wasn't me because it ended up in New Richmond.
Yes.
So it was going to go up to some winery or something.
Yes.
And then the winery burned down.
Yes. It was a wedding venue too, and they were hoping to actually use people could get married on the stage of the boat, right? And then come to their receptions, and it was a good idea.
Yeah. But the winery burned down, and then the guy basically beached it in New Richmond. There's a wall there, and it was just up there, and they were holding it, and in theory, they were supposed to be building a a way for you to get on. And
yeah, they were supposed to be building a pier. That was part of the agreement when it went to Middletown.
So it didn't. That didn't happen. And then finally they chased him out of there.
Yeah.
And
well, I think the contract, he had to make a certain number of repairs to the boat, and they were supposed to build the pier.
Yeah.
And neither, like, each was kind of like, you do it first, and then I'll do it. And then
the village of New Richmond, living out there, has its own set of issues.
Does it?
But yeah, clearly this, and then because then I've seen like drone photos of the thing just.
The Natty Cast is supported by Mad Cheese. Mad Cheese is a completely plant-based, dairy-free cheese and charcuterie shop located in Madisonville. The owners, Cincinnati natives Heather and Reggie Donaldson, handcraft over 30 different plant-based cheeses and meats in their commercial production kitchen behind the storefront. You're invited to stop in and sample the wide array of products, book a curated tasting, or sign up for the new subscription box program, which will feature an exclusive new cheese every month with recipes and board-building tutorials. For more, head to Instagram and Facebook at Mad Cheese Cincy or go to www.madcheese.com. And with that, back to the show.
Yeah, so it's been moving around. I think to stay out of any kind of jurisdiction. Yes, where they might be. Yes.
I smell a Lifetime movie for this boat, man.
Yeah, there we go.
It was such a shame because it's not powered, right? You have to get a tugboat to move this thing.
It used to have an attaboy, right? In fact, the original attaboy sunk. And like when the guy who bought it,
you're gonna tell everybody what an attaboy is.
Yeah.
Because
do I need to tell?
Wait a minute. Whoa.
It's-
You're a theater person.
Yeah.
What's all this maritime
I know,
stuff
right?
we're
I
going
know.
into?
Well, this is what happens when you grow up on a showboat, guys.
Wow.
So an attaboy is the reverse of a tugboat. So tugboat pulls and attaboy pushes is basically the difference. Yes, the original attaboy for the showboat sunk many years ago. And so he had to like hire a different one to come in and drag it up the river. And so yes, now it lives on various river banks and dodges, I think, local authorities. And it's tied to various trees and cement poles that exist on just random riverfronts. There are a lot of people concerned about it, I'll be honest. The thing is, things change. I would love the showboat to still be here. It's a huge part of like my childhood memories, as well as I think a really decent piece of the city's history. Well, American theater's history,
it's the last
right?
one.
Like
it is the last one, and once it's gone, it's gone.
That's right. So the real tragedy of it isn't that it was bought by a sole proprietor and that someone's. I mean, it's not awesome that it's private property now, but like I just wish it were somewhere that one, people could appreciate it, and two, I don't know, the old girl deserves a nice retirement is kind of how I feel. Yeah. Like she doesn't deserve to be, running around. There's a riverboat museum in Marietta, Ohio. And that's the place like my family.
They had tried to buy it.
Did they?
So I think that, and they maybe they'll still get it. But when that auction went, I think they were like number 2. I think they were trying to buy it and take it.
That's unfortunate. I wish they had. Yeah. Well, and also there are still some of the original Reynolds family. So it would be grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the original Captain Reynolds who built the boat. They still live in like Maysville or something, right? Okay. And I know the girls at least were trying. There's like a pair of sisters who have been pretty active, and they were trying to get it to come to Maysville.
Matthew just popped up here and says there's a Facebook group called Save the Showboat Majestic.
Yes, there is. Yes, I'm in that Facebook group. Sometimes you need to mute that Facebook group. They can get real heated. There are heated arguments from the people who spent their lives on it and love it, and the people who own it now and feel that they are appropriate conservators of its time and history.
Well, let's hope it finds a
I do. That's all. Right. Yeah. I don't bear anybody anything ill will. I get it. You know, it was an auction. The city decided to, send it out. It was too expensive and a pain in their butt. I get it.
I have a beautiful oil painting.
Do you?
Of the Showboat. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
It's spectacular, yeah.
It's always funny, like, we'll find, like, something where they've, like, photographed Cincinnati somewhere, like, obviously not recently, but, like, at the airport or something where they've, like, got it up, and it'll be like, let's find the Showboat, right? Yeah. So it's kind of fun, because sometimes you'll see it in, like, national things every once in a while when it's just, like, a picture of the riverfront, and you're like, oh, there's the Showboat.
Well, my mom was at CCM in the 60s, right? And I was up at CCM in the 80s, and, you're talking about... So, I mean, it's a long period of time of the city
and all
being
of that
photographed.
is before the 23 years that my dad runs it. So like it's just
a long time.
Right. I don't know. For me, it was like a little, like a little mascot on the river. I don't know. And now it's I wish her a good retirement.
I would have thought, Rex, you would have had, like you being a ship guy, a boat, like some kind of model or smaller.
I was trying to when the thing.
Because what's the ship? Does Maggie know about the ship you have? It's the Rex. You know that?
Sorry. Do you have a ship?
No, I don't. It's 6 feet.
A model.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a model. I bought a model of the ocean liner Rex, which my grandparents. It was an Italian cruise liner. Immigrated to the U.S. on. So I have it. And I would love one of the Showboat. It would be great. We were overlooking at the. If you go to B&B Riverboats, they've got a cool selection of models. In their in their lobby area. It's pretty neat over there. So. But anyway, so your dad also runs other theaters on the West Side.
He sure does. So when I think I was in college. No, first show we did at the Covedale Theater. That was the next one he opened. So I had the Showboat for a long time, and then decided they needed like a winter space to produce that wasn't, at the mercy of the weather. So the old Covedale movie theater, on Glenway Avenue, if anyone's been to the Covedale Theater. A lot of people on the West Side grew up like seeing shows, right? It was like a two.
It was a movie theater.
Yeah,
it
was just like
house,
it was a two-screen, like double movie theater. And man, that was like the main theater even through like my growing up, right? And then it changed to like a cinema grill for a little bit, and that did not work. I don't know why or not. But they closed, like it had been for sale, and like my dad had kind of been looking at it, and then the cinema grill bought it, and then they folded in like 2 years. And at that point, it was like my dad and a couple other guys who are like on the board of his nonprofit were just like, oh, no, we're buying it. Like, we are getting this. This is like...
Had it ever been like a vaudeville house? Did it have a stage or anything in it?
No, it didn't have a stage.
Some of those movie theaters were converted.
It was a movie theater. Yeah. And so, like even if you go... So when you go into the Covedale, it still has the original like neon that was in the lobby. Yeah. It still has the like snack counter like it was, black and white checker floors, right? And so when we took it over, so they knocked out that middle wall, of course. And you could see where it had been, right? Where the separation had been.
Because it was two cinemas.
Yeah, it was two separate cinemas. So they busted that wall down. And actually the stage is, so they have a summer program called Cincinnati Young People's Theater. So it's like their teen summer show. And that actually existed before anything else, right? He had that out at Westwood Town Hall, working for Cincinnati Recreation back in the day. And like those shows are what pushed him to get the Showboat. And then the Showboat pushed him to get the Covedale. And actually the dads for the teen program, they rolled in and they built that stage in like 4 days.
Wow.
It's gigantic too. Yeah. It's a huge playing space.
I think my dad directed a couple shows up there after he retired. Yeah,
absolutely. Right.
I think your dad had him come in and direct a couple things up there.
Yeah, and it's been going a long time now. I honestly can't remember how long the Covedale's been up and running. The Incline Theater, which is right there in East Price Hill, right in the Incline District. That opened, I think it's exactly 10 years this summer that we've had the Incline
I've not
open.
been in it. I've seen it from the outside, but I've not been in it. It looked like...
Oh, the Incline's beautiful. So it's a purpose-built theater, right? It was built ground up to be a theater. It was, really one of the first new venues built in Cincinnati in a long time for theater.
It was even before the Shakespeare Company got built.
Yes, it was before the new Shakespeare building. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How many seats at the Incline?
The Incline.
350?
Yeah, the Incline is, I want to say it's about 300.
Yeah.
It's right at 300.
Yeah.
The Covedale.
Maggie's father's going to be very unhappy with
Oh,
her.
he's going to love this interview. He's going to be like, yes, exactly.
But
let me just
Quick,
tell you.
get a tape measure, run out.
But here's the
and find out
thing.
how
She
wide the seats
remembers
are.
the phone number to check the height of the river.
He'll be so proud, you guys. You have no idea.
Yeah. Okay, so with the Incline in the Covedale, now what sort of stuff did you do at the theater?
Yeah, so I'm a dancer. That's my number one love in life in terms of what my primary art form is, what have you. So I grew up, dancing, right? I've danced on the Showboat Majestic.
So you were in the shows growing up,
yeah. He had it through my college years. So I went to Miami University, and my older sister and I would actually come back and do the Showboat shows with some regularity. Yes, it's actually hilarious to perform on there because half the time you're singing, and then the fireworks go off at the Red Stadium, and you're don't mind that fire. Sometimes people will ad-lib things, right? Wow, that kiss was really something, because it just boomed while they were having their stage kiss. Or the other thing is the wake, right? So when a big tug something comes through, or a big barge, right? It creates this big wave. And so you'll be standing on a platform, doing your step ball changes or what have you, your time steps. And you're like, hey guys, whoa. I'm just waving back and forth while I also try to top dance. A million hilarious things on the Showboat that people don't realize. You had to go outside from the dressing rooms. They were on the upper deck of the boat. So you had to come outside, onto the gangway, and then come around. If it's raining,
it's raining,
you are walking on stage wet. That's just how that works. I did a show there where the woman playing the lead, she had a quick change and was coming around the corner on the back of the boat to come through the little door to go to backstage. Fell. Oh. Literally slid under the railing and into the water. She was holding on. She's holding on with her two hands to the railing. She is waist deep in the Ohio River.
In the mighty Ohio.
Yep. Manages to her cue comes. We're all sitting on stage waiting for her to walk in, and we're like, oh God, where's Jan? She's supposed to walk in and sing a powerhouse number right now.
Yeah.
And all we can do is look at the door she's supposed to come through. And 10 seconds go by, 15 seconds go by. She finally comes busting in, just soaked, right? She is just wet as can be. And we're like, it's not raining today. We have no idea what happens. This is the song before the act break. So we get to the act. She slams it. I mean, slam dunks the number, as always. We get back there and we're like, what the hell happened? Why are you? And she literally shows us the wet trail of herself as she had pulled herself up onto the dock or back onto the boat and dragged herself backstage. There's nothing like live theater, friends. Nothing like that.
Boat.
Yeah,
What the hell did the stage manager?
Now you mentioned Miami, but where did you graduate high school? Did you go to Western Hills?
So I went to St. Ursula on the east side. It's a deeply Catholic family. I'm from one of those my mom is one of 12 kids kind of West Side Catholic situations. So
a small family for
small family, so small. So there really weren't any other choices, right? Don't get me wrong, I got an amazing education, super glad I went, but it was a fur piece in the morning for some West Siders to get over there in the morning traffic. But also, my mom went to St. Ursula. All of my aunts went to St. Ursula. My grandma and her sister went to, the Brown County boarding house that existed. A boarding school, excuse me. It's a boarding school that the Ursuline sisters ran before that.
Out in Brown County?
Out in Brown County, yes.
Oh, I missed that entirely.
Yes.
Right.
And then one of those people decide, not my grandma, the other decides to be a nun for a while. So, an Ursuline, in fact. So we roll real deep with the Ursuline nuns. And so they're it was you will go here, right? Thank you very much. Okay. And I did. And it was good. I appreciate it. I got a great education. But yeah, then I go to Miami.
Did you study dance at Miami?
I actually didn't. I have the world's weirdest undergraduate degree. So for a long time, Miami had something called the School of Interdisciplinary Studies, which existed on the old Western campus. So, man, she's really getting into some deep cuts here. So, Miami used to own, next to Miami University used to be something called the Western Women's College. It was started by the same folks that ran Mount Holyoke. So it was a women's college before there were like serious women's colleges, right? And the Western Women's College had this really neat sort of like global curriculum. And so every summer the women would go on like trips to all these different places around the world, and they would come back and have like, economic forums where they would all reflect on like, what did we learn and see about economics in the world, and what did we see about arts and culture? And it just had this really cool, like, super immersive curriculum.
Were you designing your own major inside of that?
Yes, basically. Yeah. So in the 70s, a bunch of hippie professors at Miami University went to the administration and were like, hey, you just bought the Western Women's Campus. Can we use it for this like super hippie School of Interdisciplinary Studies where we just like go
at a notoriously conservative place, Miami.
I know, but they said yes.
They were like, as long as you keep it over on the Western
as long
campus.
as you keep it across Patterson Avenue and to yourselves. And it's true, right? Like, I admit, like, my class that I go to college with are, like union organizers, and they are, on front lines with like signs next to Nancy Pelosi, like protesting things.
The troublemakers, they were able to just put over there. Right?
Very much so, right? Like we were the queer kids, we were the union kids, we were the, feminist liberals over there. So anyway, they start this hippie School of Interdisciplinary Studies where it is sort of design your own major. There's a lot of parameters to it. In some ways, it's actually more like going through like a grad program, because in the end, like all of this studying you've been doing leads to like a dissertation, right? Like you have to write it and you have to defend it.
Sure.
In some ways, it was awesome because like it wasn't like answer this on a test, please. Sure. Like barf the answers at me,
like
please.
Montessori college.
Right. It was like that's exactly right. It's like Montessori college. We lived in a like living learning community, right?
That
like,
just caught up with me.
So it was great for me actually. I always say like St. Ursula taught me to work really hard, but Western campus really taught me how to think smart, right? Like they're really about like how do we find things like. How do we break everything down, sort of look at its parts, and then reintegrate in ways that solve problems?
This was the idea of a liberal arts education.
That's exactly right.
It seemed to have gotten lost somewhere along the way. Okay,
absolutely. Right. Totally
fine if you go to a conservatory or if you go to a medical school or to become a lawyer, fine.
Right.
There's a track.
That's right.
It's almost, for lack of a better word, a vocational track.
Yeah, it's a vocational track. That's right.
But if you were going to go study liberal arts, the whole idea was not that you took multiple choice test,
exactly.
Right?
So it turned into what you were just saying.
Exactly.
Regurgitate this answer
exactly
back on this
right
piece of
yeah
paper,
unfortunately right. So I have an amazing college experience, and basically what I get to do is I get to sort of make a track of study that's really about like community arts programming. So like large scale arts programming that is meant for community engagement, that is meant for, civic integration, all kinds of stuff like that. So, if we look at Blink, right, like that's sort of an example. It's a little less like contextualized, I feel, since you're just like looking at stuff, right? But it's a similar kind of thing, right? Where you're trying to use large scale arts projects to bring communities together, to sort of bridge differences and divides. I was part of Renaissance Covington when I worked at the Carnegie Theater, and they do a lot of what's referred to as placemaking, right? It's just about making your neighborhood somewhere people actually want to be out and like living in, right?
That's fantastic.
Exactly, right. Yeah. Artwork, artworks I think is a great example of placemaking. Absolutely. And it's really interesting to see placemaking that's happened like around the country, right? Like there are really cool things where, right, they'll like take an entire alley and the whole thing is done, and super cool mural, but then they've also like embedded a basketball court into it. If you look at the lines and stuff, it fits into the actual like portraiture
Landscape,
of the mural. But then when you look, it's like, oh, those are the lines for a basketball court, and you can see they've also, they put in a hoop, right? And it's just like now there are kids there playing on this like beautifully,
Surrounded by
artful
art.
alley, right? That used to just be like a bunch of trash, right? So just stuff like that. I know the Carnegie right now is working with some folks to do a new installation in Northern Kentucky that's some kind of sculptural piece, so it's just about creating everyday arts experiences that are actually for everybody. I
loved when the I grew up in Mount Adams in Eden Park, when the art museum built that staircase.
Me too.
That goes up to the art museum and created the new entrance to the actual front of the art
I see
museum.
people on those steps every day.
Amazing.
Some of them are doing it for exercise. Some of them are picnicking. I've seen a lot of like wedding photos on those steps. So, it's just about making your community spaces something people actually want to take part in, right? And getting people out of their homes and like into the public way.
And this is where you've maybe started to make the transition from being a dancer on stage or whatever, right? Into getting into the other part of...
Absolutely. Well, and so, like I took a bunch of theater, right? Don't get me wrong. So like directing, stuff like that, in college. And then I have a master's, but it's in teaching theater, just because, artists often need a way to teach for money. And so that was the right choice for me. But it's really about taking the arts out of spaces that people find hard to walk into. So, for instance, during COVID, when I was running the Carnegie in Covington, we had done a million things prior to COVID where, we're giving out tickets to the people in the neighborhood. We're working through the neighborhood association to give out tickets. Like, we want the people in our immediate neighborhood to come. But they never really got used. Like, none of those programs were successful. And we changed it a bunch of times, too, is the thing. And we did a lot of stuff with the community, right? Like, our local, like, AME like shut down their community center, so like we had the like community dance team rehearsing at our rehearsal studio, right? Or we did every year like they do a community toy drive, right? We would always host that at the Carnegie. So we tried as much as we could to be there, but we just had a lot of problems with people. I shouldn't say problems, but like we couldn't figure out how to make the people in the neighborhood feel comfortable walking through the door and sitting down and watching a show. There was something about like stepping over the threshold and into the building.
It can be intimidating if you don't know.
Well, and people feel like the arts come with like a lot of like rules, right? Like what's the etiquette of this theater, right? I tend to be a little more lax on that just because I'm like, if you get yourself into a theater, I'm pleased as punch for you to be there. I don't really care if you're 10 minutes late. Thank you for coming, right? But I do think... So during COVID, we started doing shows like in our back lot. And we actually shared it a little bit. The No Theater also came over and did some shows in our back parking lot. And that really showed me that the people in our neighborhood were totally down to watch theater because we had probably 45 people just walk up on it and sit down. Like it was ticketed, but we didn't worry about that basically, right?
Yeah.
And then we took over the Covington Riverfront for like a season and a half where we did outdoor shows. So we did Little Shop of Horrors at the amphitheater in Covington. We did like a tap dance jazz review show. We did several, like probably 4 or 5 shows down there.
Were there hands?
Were there hands?
Yeah.
In the jazz show? Yes, there were definitely hands. Hands and tap dancing. But it just showed you like, we'd sell the tickets fine. Like we sold tickets to our normal audiences and they would buy tickets and come down. But it was in the park. So like we weren't policing the tickets. If anybody wanted to sit down, sit down. I saw more little kids sit down at Little Shop of Horrors and like wide-eyed, like, oh my gosh, they do this? Right? And for most of those kids, I'm sure it was like their first show they were really sitting down to, right? But like when we did it in the back lot, at the Carnegie, the building's right there. But like everybody came from the houses across the street and sat down and watched the outdoor show.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was just like, it really taught me a lot about like keeping the arts in the common way
Accessible.
is crazy important to how we live our lives.
Yeah.
The number of people that have sat in that chair that you're sitting in now that have said pretty much that same thing.
Awesome.
It was
Well,
that one show.
Exactly.
And
well, I always tell people, Misty Copeland, who's like the really famous black ballerina, who was like the first black principal for ABT, right? Or the American Ballet Theater.
She just retired, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
Tim's wife is a dancer in New York.
Oh, really?
City.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
I love it. So Misty literally 13 years old, which everyone would tell you is too late to learn to be a ballet dancer.
Yeah.
13 years old, walks into a Boys and Girls Club of America and takes her first ballet dance class.
Yeah.
And she's Misty Copeland.
Right.
This is my point, right? Unfortunately, a lot of folks think the arts are for the ivory tower spaces. And the truth is I just want you to enjoy them. If you want to sing in your shower, you can be an artist. If you want to paint and sketch and never show it to anyone, great. If you want to, do a whole recital in your basement, or in the middle of the street drunkenly on a Saturday night, is it bringing you joy? Are you finding a freedom in expression? Mm-hmm. Are you finding some of who you are by the doing and creating of things? I'm here for it. That's all I really need.
And honestly, when the Performing Arts School started, which is is that where you went next from Carnegie to the Performing Arts School?
Yeah. So I do a bunch of wild things. I teach high school theater. I'm on the road.
This is after. I'm just for our listeners to track this. So you graduate Miami. Do you go then to get your master's from Thomas More,
no.
or how does that?
Nope. Long story short, she graduates from Miami.
Years.
Yeah.
Moves to Chicago. That's where my husband's from. I do a lot of theater there, but end up working for Northwestern University in career services, which I actually really liked. And it was cool, helping people find jobs and running job search workshops and stuff like that. So that was actually really cool. My
Did
husband
you like
and I
Chicago?
I love Chicago.
Yeah.
We're there all the time. My in-laws are still there.
You moved there out of college, right, Tim?
Yes, I was there
Chicago?
in the 90s.
Ooh,
Early.
where did you live? What
I
neighborhood?
moved every year that I was there. I was from Boys Town to Bucktown to Evanston. I was moving every year. Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
We were Northsiders, North Side, Chicago. So I know. Here I'm West Side,
You always
West
have to
Side.
pick a side. Is that
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
She's throwing hand signs in
Yeah.
here.
Can
Yes,
you blur
this-
that? Can you blur that out, Matthew?
I know. Holy
It's
cow.
fine. When white girls do hand signs, people are like,
right.
"You're
Yeah,
crazy."
I don't know.
They don't even pay attention. They're just like, "Weirdo, what are you up to?" And they're right is the thing. They're right. But yes,
one time.
so one time I do it in the wrong place,
that one
then it'll be a
time,
problem.
that gang sign.
That's right. There were peace signs, I think,
Yeah,
just some
that's
peace
right.
signs.
Okay,
It's fine. No, so we live in Chicago. We moved back there because that's where Jason's from, and we're around his family and whatever. And then we actually moved to South Korea.
Oh,
Wow.
Of course you did. Well, that's
Of
on the
course,
path. That's
right. We live in South Korea for a time.
How and
super
why?
Cool.
What was the connective to get? Did you seek
man,
it out, or
this-
did it seek you out?
We seeked it out.
Okay.
So it's not like I got transferred for a job to.
No.
Korea.
There are a variety of factors, but this is going to sound really silly. Not to be too political. But George W. Bush had been reelected.
Oh, okay.
And we were those people that were like, we're leaving the country. And of course, now America is like, hold my beer.
Yeah.
George W. Bush, those will be
Right.
remembered as days of decency and measured thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
Someone was telling me the other day about they were rewatching a clip where George W. Bush basically is saying, we need to tone down the rhetoric around immigration. We shouldn't be demonizing folks and whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, I miss George W. Bush. And I was like, yeah, man, I know, right? So you live, you learn. That, 24-year-old me was like, this is shit. I'm leaving. Obviously she didn't know.
Most people went to Canada, but okay, so
Yeah.
South
So
Korea.
South Korea. So we taught English at an immersion school.
Nice.
Which was great. I taught jazz dance.
Again with the jazz hands.
Yes. So that was actually really funny. So there's classical Korean dance, which is only really taught in Korean and very hard to get access to as an expat. But they have something called the American Ballroom Studio in Seoul. So I was like, well, I hadn't taken ballroom, so I got super into ballroom while we lived there. And while I was there, they were like, well, do you want want to teach like a jazz series? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll teach a jazz workshop series in the summer. Great. So here I am teaching jazz in Korea. And like half the class is expats, but half the class is Korean women. And jazz just requires a lot of isolations, right? So I'm literally like, hey, stick your boobs out, stick your butt out, like one at a time, right? Because it's isolations. But, you know, and it was like I had scandalized these women. They were like, oh, it's like, we are not doing this. And I was just like, oh, sorry. This is what jazz dance is. It does require this. And they were like shocked at this American dance style that required a lot of booty work that they were not accustomed to in their general cultural movement spaces. So that was maybe one of the more hilarious moments of my life. But
how long were you over there?
We were there a little over a year. And then we took a little time. We backpacked, you know, through various parts of Asia.
And so, did you say, were you in Seoul? Did you say you were in Seoul?
Yeah, we lived in Seoul. Yeah, we lived in Seoul. Yeah. But we also, like, you know, we saw almost all of Korea because Korea is really small, right? Yeah. In terms of people think all nations are big, but it's like the size of Indiana or something, right?
South Korea.
Did you go to look? Yeah, did you go to look at the demilitarized area?
Yes, actually, wow. Yeah. So we had bought a day trip where we were actually going to go in, and you get to take a bus to something that's referred to as Propaganda City. It has a real name in North Korea, but everyone in Seoul and the expats going all refer to it as Propaganda City. But that was canceled the day before because they closed the border to all foreigners because George W. Bush had come for a visit to South Korea.
Oh, right.
And there were a bunch of protests, and then they closed the border.
Right.
So we got our tickets refunded. But we did you can take like a tour of the American military base, right? At the DMZ. And so you get to see, I mean, you see it all, right? It's right there. It's in the open. And then you do get to go to like, there is like a conference house, essentially. Like it's just a giant conference room, but it's a building all by itself. And it straddles the demarcation line. Wow. And so you go into it and they bring you in obviously on the American side and they're like, we're going to let you walk around the table. Oh. And when you get to the other side, you're in North Korea. So I like have technically been in North Korea, but it's like inside a building that shares America. Like
that's
is
crazy.
American territory technically because it's an American base. Yeah. Anyway, so, it's fascinating. Live abroad. I literally tell everyone possible, live abroad for a period of time, be a minority in someone else's space. It will teach you just more things about yourself. It also really taught me to, like, appreciate in America as I go off about my George W. Bushness. But, it taught me to really appreciate.
All of a sudden, you wanted to have a beer with George W. when you came back home.
I mean, that's been more lately, I admit. But it is something where, like, I came home and was like, no, America's trying to do something like really hard, right? Like building a national identity based in values alone, like no blood, no ethnic heritage, not even similar like cultural doings, right? Like no religions, right? Like we have to allow for literally everything to be different about our humanity. But come together over a set of like rights and values. And like after living in a place that is as homogeneous as South Korea, I mean, 95% of the population is ethnically Korean. Right. So, I mean, you couldn't go to a place like less diverse in some ways, right? And like my students that I taught there, so we had like American textbooks, right? Which are very multi-diverse in terms of who they're showing and what. And like my kids were regularly confused, right? Because they had met the like white lady teachers coming to teach them some English. Sure. Yeah. But they're looking at this book and there's like, you know, that's a black kid.
Yeah. Right.
I've never met one.
Yeah.
That's a Hispanic kid. Yeah, I've never met one. So it was just really interesting to see like even their television. And this is all, we lived there 12, 15 years ago now. So a lot of things have changed.
It was pre-K-pop making it.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, K-pop is like just starting. And we're like there as like the Wonder Girls are launching. I don't know. They're one of the first K-pop bands to go like whatever. But so we're there like seeing all of this, like, you know, the sort of Korean international campaign that they're beginning, right? So I'm sure things are very different now, but just like their television really didn't have, like, you wouldn't see almost anyone non-Korean, and when you did, they were usually like a Western European or a white American. So it was super interesting to meet the kids, and like, you know, their whole lives are just different, and they count age different, and there's like a million things, right? Like, I basically taught what we would call 3-year-olds, but they were 5 there, and I was like, how does this happen?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
So when you're born in South Korea, you're 1. The entire first year you're alive, you're 1.
I see.
Gotcha.
And then the entire second year you're alive, you're 2. So, right, like, to me, my kids were supposed to be like 5, right? But really, they count 1, right? So they're 4, but then they're technically like in year 5. But at the beginning of it, none of them has had their birthdays yet, so they're all still actually 3, right? So it's a really
that always confused me too. I always wonder what's the cutoff when we stop counting kids.
Do they celebrate birthdays there? Like we do?
Yeah, you would still have your individual birthday to an extent, but like for all like governmental school purposes, right? Every kid born in the same year is the same age, right?
Got it.
So for any kind of processing, they just don't care as much about your individual birth date, I guess, is part of it. But a million things, right? But like so much of it is also like way better than what we do, right? Like the recycling there is off the chain, right? Like you have like 2 bags, one for organic waste, one for like plastic waste.
Yeah.
And it turns out that's actually all the waste there is when you get to the end of it.
Yeah.
There is no trash can. There is plastics recycling and organics recycling. And that's it. And I was like, well, what about trash? And they were like, what do you have that doesn't fit into one of those 2 bins? And I was like,
anything.
Nothing. Right. They were like, all right, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
but
you said something really interesting that made me remember something. How do I say this? I've been the first black person that someone's ever met.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And absolutely.
Traveling.
Yeah. My husband and I were in India, and we ended up taking a bunch of pictures with a bunch of lovely South Indian persons at a museum that was very rural. And they were like, well, we've never met a white person for real. Can we take a picture with you?
I got a lot of the same thing. Yeah,
I bet you did.
To hear
Absolutely.
me talk, and then of course I was putting it on, like, you know.
That's right.
In all Barry White mode, you know.
The basso profundo. We're back to it. We're back to the basso profundo.
I was going to say the only version of that I've ever seen is what you remember when Lennox Lewis showed up here, a boxer. I don't know, probably 2.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I know who it is.
But he has a British accent, and everybody's like, black people can have British accents.
Your wife.
Indeed.
Well, Wendy, right down the street on at the Shell gas station on Liberty Street. For those of you who know the area.
Oh, know it well.
Rex's wife is, from Peterborough and in England. And someone came up to her and asked, hey, do black folks in England talk the way that you do? Yeah.
Sure thing, they sure do. That's right. Yeah. So live in the wider world. It's deeply wonderful. But yes, we returned from Korea, and I go to work for the Educational Theater Association, which if you were ever like in the National Thespian Honors Society or anything like that in high school, it runs that. A couple other things. So I was actually on the road team, so I basically got to travel the country putting on like theater festivals and conferences for theater students and theater teachers, right?
Cool.
That was a great job. I adored that job.
It sounds like it.
It just paid terribly, like most nonprofits do. Yes, and then I teach some high school theater, and then I go to the Carnegie. So I do many years at the Carnegie, and then 2 years after COVID, I was really realizing like I couldn't turn the dial back down at the Carnegie, right? Like we'd moved everything up to like crisis mode to like get through the pandemic, right? Keep our people paid. We actually produced through the entirety of the pandemic. We did it in crazy distanced and outdoor ways.
You mentioned doing things out back in the
Absolutely.
Parking lot or
right.
whatever.
Yes, but we also we did a production of Godspell that was like, it was up in Hamilton at Pyramid Hill. And like we were able to, I worked with the rights holders in New York, like the original hippies that own it, not the like version now that you can license through MTI, but like the one, literally Nan Perlman is the last living human, I think, from that group. And you call her and she's a smoker. And you're like, hey, Nan, I want to like license. I want to work with you because I wanted to do Godspell. But I was like, we're going to have to repeat some scenes because I need people to come through in small groups. I was like, we're going to do the show. We're going to do it in order. People are just going to see it broken down across the park, right? And Nan said, she literally like takes a drag off her cigarette and is like, are you going to pay for it? And I was like, yep, we're going to pay you whatever you want, Nan. She was like, great, that's fine. I want this much. Send me the check by Tuesday. And then she hung up. And I was like,
she was tightly protecting the artistic vision.
Yeah, right. I know, right. She just wanted to make sure she was getting paid.
And for the listeners at home, the Carnegie is?
The Carnegie is a theater in Covington, Kentucky. Yes, it's been around probably almost 20 years now. It was originally built as a civic auditorium. It was built, so Covington had one of the Carnegie libraries, right? And then the Carnegie's actually built 4 civic auditoriums in the country that were like attached to the libraries in cities that were like, hey, we don't have like a public meeting space. And one of those places just happens to be Covington, Kentucky. And so they built the community auditorium right next to the Carnegie Library. And then everything goes to hell, of course. The library gets shut down. They scrap the metal dome it once had for like the war effort in the Second World War. They let it rain into the Carnegie. There are birds. There are trees growing out of it. And then a group of, concerned citizens gets together. They form a small arts council for Covington, and they slowly but surely rehabbed it and raised the money to get it back up to what it is now, which is gorgeous. So there's the entire original library that is an art gallery, free, open to the public every weekday and on Saturdays. And they're doing incredible work over there. And so, like they've had mega showings. They just got a really big grant from the Andy Warhol Foundation. They're doing incredible work on the gallery side. And then they restored the theater as well in that. And they opened their first season, I'm not going to remember when, but it's probably about 10 years before I get there. If folks know Eric Vossmeyer, who used to be part of New Stage Collective, and I think he's part of the group that starts the No maybe originally, but he was like the first director person of the theater. And then Josh Steele came in, who used to be running Memorial Hall. And then he may still be at Memorial Hall, I don't know. And then I took it over from Josh. So it's still in sort of a newer life, right? But the building is like incredibly old, turn of the century, but like a lot of folks in Covington just like really poured it on to keep it, which is amazing.
It's always amazing, yeah.
Exactly. And it's such a like landmark in the community too. So it's in the east side neighborhood of Covington, which is a historically black neighborhood. And like it really is something where we were able to really work with the East Side Association and like, make it a space that people can use, right? Like we were almost a community center in a lot of ways, because we really wanted to engage with the community. And so if you you need a space for the dance team, we'll open it up, no problem, right? And it was like 6 or 7 super dedicated humans, right? Which I find I was really spoiled at the Carnegie. It was such an amazing group of humans who super held the mission first and foremost, and we super respected each other. We didn't always agree, right? There's plenty of times where we disagreed, but we did it with a lot of respect for each other. And I always knew that they wanted the best for the Carnegie and the best for the people we served, right? We wanted to get artists paid. We wanted to get audiences having community experiences together. We wanted people to be able to pay their bills and, pay babysitters for their kids.
Artists to get paid and audiences to be able to actually attend.
Right. So, which is hard because you got to keep the ticket price kind of low, and you got to invest more in the actual folks that are coming in to make the art.
Sure.
Which people would tell you that's not actually a great business plan, right?
Right.
Pay your employees a lot and don't charge your customers very much. That sounds sane, right? I'll take that into a bank. They'll give me a mortgage, right? These are the things, it can be hard, but the truth is if you can make it work, if you can find the sweet spot, you can be a really important community arts organization to the people you serve, right?
And then you transition though into actual, like it's the performing arts
artistic
school.
director.
Yes.
Artistic director of the performing arts school.
Yes.
So now you're actually engaging with young children,
Yes.
learning the arts from the get-go.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing, right? So like I grew up in Cincinnati, right? Like I'm a native. Here I am, right? I left, I came back, like so many of us do, right? But I think about like when my dad was getting out of college and people were saying, what do you want to do? He was like, oh, I'm going to be in theater. And they were like, oh, so you're moving to New York? And he was like, no. And people thought, like, would laugh, right? Like, hilarious. You're going to make a life as an actor in Cincinnati, right? And, he wasn't really trying to be an actor, right? He was trying to start a theater company, right? Which people didn't quite understand. But the truth is, when I look around, right, I see that, like, my dad did it. And Lynn Myers did it, right? And like all of these people, my dad and Lynn Myers actually graduate college together. Maybe she's a year older, but they went to college together. Mm-hmm. It's just funny because they both end up like really
Where was that college?
Thomas More College over in Northern Kentucky. That's actually where I do my master's degree. So keeping it in the family, right? Gotcha. But yeah, so they both go to Thomas More. And yeah, Lynn maybe graduates a year before him. But either way, right, they both are highly invested in the concept of like having theater in Cincinnati that's enough to like sustain work, have artists really like live here and do their thing, right?
Yeah. Like Chicago, a Minneapolis.
Well, like anywhere. And of course, the Playhouse in the Park, right, opens to somewhat in the same timeline through the regional theater movement, right? So like things just start to happen in Cincinnati. And suddenly there's like a generation of people who are like, you know what? We can actually make a go of it here. And that was, now a lot longer, 60 years ago now, but I'm sitting here as an absolute direct descendant of that legacy, right? Like I get to work at any number of arts organizations I want in the city. I get to like be a part of an incredibly thriving, arts economy and hub. All of this is because a couple people decided to dig in, and really make it this space. Yeah. So I try not to take for granted that, like, I totally stand on their shoulders. Not only that, but, like, there just wouldn't be anything if people hadn't said, we're going to stay. We're going to make it happen here.
And the three of us graduated from performing arts school.
Exactly.
And, kind of knowing the history of that kind of coming up around the same time. Yeah. Where we're going to basically take a generation of kids in the city and do arts education. Exactly. I think it's been transformative. I mean, you look at the influence and out in the world. I mean, Tins of Brooklyn or whatever, but the ripples that sent out in the world from a place like Cincinnati.
That's exactly right. Well, and honestly, what it's even done, I mean, the ripples are amazing, but like, it's a huge reason Cincinnati is what it is, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
that arts economy didn't grow by accident, right?
Right.
And now look at how many venues we have, right? I'm a big venue person, I admit, because like my dad ran those properties where things he had to deal with, right? When I was at the Carnegie, that property was set, right? Like, so I think about all the venues, right? Then think about how many techs we need. Right. How many stage managers, how many house managers, how many ticketing managers, like
ushers.
Every venue I walk into in the city, I meet somebody working there who graduated from SCPA. Yeah.
Wow.
That never not happens. Yeah. Really? Every time I'm at Music Hall, every time. Yeah. The sound guy who's, mic checking us, he went to SCPA. The guy who's running the spot up, he went to SCPA. Yeah. Every single venue this happens in. Wow. And that's one of the things that, I really care about telling that story, I admit, to Cincinnatians, because I do think, again, this is one of those pieces where, we want the audience to be part of it, right? They have to understand all the pieces that go in so they can, truly feel the, appreciation and awesomeness, in my opinion, that is theater, right? But like a lot of people will walk in, sit down, see the show and leave and be like, oh, that was lovely. And I'm like, do you realize how many humans are like sweating it out to make that happen? They see and clap for the folks on stage. And a lot of people want to be like, oh, that person, you know, graduated from SCPA and is on stage. But what you're not seeing is like the like hundreds of them that are loading your show in, loading your show out, running the lights, running the sound. They are production managers.
Costumes.
They're
makeup.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like we are the workforce for the creative economy. Like when I looked at the job for SCPA, I was like, well, this is creating, like this is how I can give back to my city, right? This is how I can make sure that like what I got is passed on to the next generation, right? I can make sure that there is the next generation of art makers, the next generation of kids that can get in and like make that art happen in our venues, and keep us in this high caliber artistic tier where people are not only appreciating Cincinnati, but they're like literally moving here for it, right?
And talk about embracing spaces. Now you are assistant dean at UCCCM.
Yes, I'm moving up the hill, right? Is what
that's
like
huge.
Geographically, I should say. It is huge. I'm really excited. I haven't started yet, so I have no idea what it'll be like. I am, as I said when I got here, happily enjoying the no man's land between jobs, which is the only true freedom an adult can experience, in my opinion. So I'm soaking it in right now. But yeah, so I'll actually be, so I'm doing community engagement for CCM.
Okay.
So
That's great.
Yeah, so I'll be over all of their like outreach, all of their like classes and workshops and intensives that are open to the public. So that includes like the CCM prep department, right? So like classes for K through 12 on campus, but it's also adult coursework. It's all the summer intensives. So like conducting as well as vocal music. It's mostly performance art, not visual, obviously, or like media production.
I mean, Matthew, my son, who's a producer, in addition to graduating from CCM there, he was took guitar up there for
exactly.
years.
Right,
as part of that,
private lessons.
Yeah.
Well, and so I am like a CCM prep ballet division kid, right? Like that's where I really start to like be disciplined in art,
gotcha.
right? So like, I'm sitting in the back of any number of rehearsals with my dad, but like I am realizing like I like to dance. I'm at a dance studio, but like I wasn't really like disciplined about it, right? I was like talking, cutting up, doing some jokes and some stand up for my classmates instead of like buckling down. And then my mom enrolls me at CCM in the prep program, and it's like, oh, this is serious. This is what's serious, right? Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh, I need to be serious, right? Like it really taught me like discipline and artistry, right? Like that was the first place I learned to like work crazy hard and like push through the moments where you're like, I can't hold my leg any longer out there. And then you're just like, I'm going to, right? So it was the first place I really got like that kind of stick-to-itiveness. But then the other piece is like, the artistry there was more than I had seen or understood, like at my little studio I was at, right? Like we had an actual pianist who's there, like playing La
Live
Esmeralda
piano.
as I'm like doing my batmas. And I was like, there's just a whole community there that you're a part of that you start to realize like, oh, this is a more integrated thing than, it's not just like do the tondus, do the batma, right? Like it's like an integrated art form where I'm like acting and there's all this amazing like classical ballet music and it just like it just took me to a place of like cohesive understanding of art in a way that was really different and definitely something that I think is part of why I end up being such an interdisciplinary weirdo. Sure. There's nothing like I'm just not interested in anything that's like just a straight track. I'm like, but what are we mixing it with, or what pieces of it are we pulling out to like, nope. Yeah. If it's really hard for me to look at things and be like, we're just gonna act. I'm like, well, we can't just act. Obviously, we have to have movement, and we have to have like. I took a lot of art history and a lot of visual art growing up. I'm terrible. I'm a terrible artist, everyone. But
art is subjective. You show us some of your pieces. Come on now.
Okay. Well, no is the answer. But my point is really just like it taught me so much about
Exposure,
composition.
sure.
Yeah.
Right. Like
to it.
what visual composition, like how is the eye led from one thing to another? If I want someone to look upright, what do I need to set up to like naturally pull their eye there? Not just like have somebody wave their hand and be like, hi, I'm talking up here. Look at me. Right.
Yeah.
And there's just like, there's so much in art to like learn about in terms of angles and ratios and how the eye and the brain interpret things. Man, I couldn't imagine directing for the stage without all of that, you know?
Sure.
And right, so I become a director and a choreographer. I really started as a choreographer, but I end up choreographing for a lot of older male directors. And I'm a little bit of like a theater whisperer, right? Because they will be like, I want this, and then and like, okay,
I'll translate that for you.
yeah. What he would like is for you to come downstage and start on right, and then you're gonna right. And so that happened a lot of times, and then eventually people started to be like, it seems like you're doing a lot of the work. Why don't I just hire you and cut out the paycheck of another human? You're cheaper and younger, right? And so I finally hit the point of like, cheaper and younger, and we appreciate your talent enough that it's worth it.
That's
so
always a good equilibrium.
right. So I got in a little bit on a cut rate discount, and then eventually I'd done it enough that people were like, okay, you seem like you know what you're doing. We'll let you run a theater.
Now, have you ever choreographed any like stage combat or anything like that?
No, not really. Okay. I am not certified in stage combat. I want to be very clear about that because that is a whole other world, right?
Yeah.
And I am not certified in hand-to-hand or on knives or swords or any of that kind of stuff. I have done a fair amount of like dance fighting, right? They're just
like the Jets and the Sharks kind of dance.
Yeah,
fighting.
exactly. A lot of Jets and Sharks, a lot of like Farmer and the Cowman in Oklahoma, right?
Okay.
There are shows where like the Dream Ballet in Oklahoma has several fight scenes. It does.
Right.
But you want them to be a dance, really, right? I did 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. A lot of fight scenes in that. Surprisingly more fight scenes than you might remember. But again, they were danced more so than actual like hand to hand.
So as we close this out, we usually hand this over to Tim, and
sounds good. I've been here a while.
We haven't touched on any of this, so Tim, you can take it away.
Yes, I like to ask each, because Cincinnati has such a rich sports history.
Lord!
If you were to wear a jersey. Whatever, whether it's football, baseball, soccer, highlight, cricket, whatever it is, if you were to wear a jersey, what name would you have on the back of that jersey?
Oh, you want an actual individual player?
Yeah. Oh, you can give me a team or
friend.
Whatever.
Have you seen any of the Cincinnati in all of your time in Cincinnati? Have you been to a Bengals game or a Reds game?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm from here. I haven't not, been baptized in Cincinnati sports. Right? No, I've been to all the.
I mean, you heard the fireworks from the Showboat.
That's exactly right. Oh, we spent a lot of time at the old riverfront, but no, I've been to the Great America. I've been to all the things.
You're a West Sider now. Just keep that in mind.
She is. Wow, this is such a hard question. Well, I'm going to say, like, personally, the only, like, Cincinnati athlete that I, like, follow at all in the world is probably Joe Burrow. And that's just because he's so, like, now, right?
Sure. No, that's good.
I'd probably go with that. Yeah. Okay, good.
We totally accept
There
Burrow.
is no wrong answer.
I will say, like, of the spirit where I own, it's really only for the Reds. I own a lot of red spirit wear, but that's kind of the only bit. And I think that's because there's a parade with drinking that happens for it. And you got to have a T-shirt to wear at the drinking parade. So, I've got good priorities, you guys. It's fine.
Well, thanks a lot
awesome.
for coming. Is there anything you want to want or anything you want to plug or anything that you got going on?
Come see the shows at SCPI next year. So if you weren't already planning to see the shows at the School for Creative and Performing Arts, there are incredible children and incredible teachers there.
And now also CCM shows.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. And then I'm going to plug, come see the shows at CCM. Send your children to CCM Prep for after school lessons and all kinds of performing things. And my smiling face will be there to greet you. And really, honestly, like the one thing I just really try to tell people is like, buy a ticket, go to a museum, go to Crone Conservatory.
Fringe Festival It's
Go
great,
to
right?
the Fringe Festival.
Yeah.
It just closed, but go to the Fringe Festival. Go find some way to get art in your life. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be high end. We don't have to be snobs about it. Just get out there, make something, appreciate something. There's a lot of bad out there to be had, but the arts regularly just give us joyful things that we make. And I far prefer to be a maker than someone who breaks things down. So be a maker. Be out there and be a maker. Enjoy it while you can.
Thank
right?
you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, Maggie.
Great to see you. Great to see you.
Yeah.
The NattyCast is proudly brought to you by Pago Lago Productions. The show is hosted by Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas. Produced and edited by Matthew Lake and associate produced by Ethan Spanja. Special thanks to Sadie Kern at Pop Gun Flow for the graphics and to Brando Triantafilu for the original theme song. Feel free to follow us at _NattyCast on Instagram or head to our website, thenattycast.com. You can get this show wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.